We need the Texas Attorney General to file an injunction in federal court to stop the IRS. And that needs to happen now. We can't wait for the next legislative session in January 2011. I'm sorry that we don't have statewide leadership that's out there working on this aggressively now. There are many around this state that are calling on our state reps and our state senators to draft that nullification language so that they can call for a special session. I'd encourage you to do that as well. Many calls have gone to the governor's office asking him to call a special session for the purpose of nullifying the health care legislation. I'm leading Texas today. I started preparing in February to be the governor because we need new leadership in Texas. I'm going to fight for Texas private property ownership, gun ownership, state sovereignty, and securing the border. I'm going to recognize that when we restore a limited constitutional government, we won't have an economic problem in Texas. When you get the government off of our back, when we have state leadership who will fight the federal government and who will recognize the proper role of state government, because see, we've got a few problems here in Texas. The sheriff mentioned a balanced budget, and some of you were thinking, well, I know Texas has a balanced budget because our Constitution says we have to. We balanced our budget in the state this year only because we took a hefty chunk of stimulus money. We balanced the budget this year, but we haven't been talking about debt in Texas. Texas had $12 billion worth of debt when Rick Perry went into office. We have $31 billion in debt today. If the state of Texas does not take on another dime of debt, we will get out of debt in 2047. Did you hear me? This state has so much debt that we do not pay it off until 2047, and it is growing every year. We are knocking on our constitutional debt limit ceiling. The governor doesn't write the budget, but he is the CEO of the state, and it is his job to give an accurate annual financial report to the shareholders of the state of Texas. You need to know the financial condition of your state so that you can best make decisions for your family and your business. We haven't had leaders that are willing to do that. Susan Combs is beginning to talk about, our state comptroller is beginning to talk about the cliff that's coming in 2011. We've got a financial hole that drops off in 2011. Our state revenue is down. Our sales tax collections are down. Our economy is hurting, but our spending continues to go up. In Texas, state spending has outpaced population and inflation by over 15% in the last, outpaced by over 15% in the last couple of years. It is going to require all of us to tighten our belts. It's going to require a governor who recognizes not only is it not Washington's job to provide health care, it's not Texas' job either. It is not the government's job to provide health care. We have doubled spending on health care in the state of Texas. We are a provider of health care, not just a regulator or licensor. We are a provider, and health care delivery in the state of Texas eats up over 1/3 of our budget. We cannot continue in that way. We've got to have leadership who will properly administer the state of Texas. It is not that we don't have enough resources. We're not putting those resources in the right place. We've doubled spending on health care. We've doubled spending on education. We have choked spending on transportation, and we have ignored the border. Transportation and the border, law enforcement, things the state ought to be doing, we are not doing. I look forward to leading in Texas. I talked to a number of you here when we arrived this morning, and you didn't know you had another candidate in the race. If that's true for you, it's true for a lot of your neighbors. We've done some internal polling in my campaign, and this is what we know about what's happening. The published polls say I poll at 3 and then 4 and then 7%. That's a doubling in a couple of months. We got a ways to go. We got 3 months till the primary. Our own internal polling says my name ID is pretty low, but if you know I'm in the race, you vote for me. Over 50% of the people who know I'm in the race are voting for Debra Medina. The job is to make sure that they know. We know that over 40%, and I don't care whose poll you look at, nearly 40% of the voters in Texas are undecided. That means they don't like Kay and Rick, because everybody knows Kay and Rick's in the race, and they don't like those two options. We have an opportunity here to elect a grassroots activist who understands the proper role of government and who's just ornery enough to fight Washington, D.C. Neither Kay nor Rick are going to do that. That is a problem with flying too close to the flame for too long. I'm pushing for term limits as a party rule. Your elected officials are never going to give that to you. As the governor, I can't give it to you. But as an assembly of people, our founders put into that First Amendment freedom of speech, press, religion, and assembly. Do you remember that freedom of assembly? So that we could seek wisdom when we come together. There's a lot of opportunity for a political party when it comes together, Constitution Party, Republican Party, Democrat Party, to influence their society for good. We all have an opportunity to participate in that. Let's, as a party, put some shackles on those elected officials and say, you know what, we all recognize this is not to harm you or to punish you, it is to protect you. I bet there aren't many men here who like their wives to spend long amounts of time in the local saloon, are there? You probably recognize that exposure to that type of environment might be a little corrupting for your wife, and she might begin to like some things that you don't want her liking, and so you probably don't let her go out to the nightclubs too often by herself. And you wives probably the same for your husbands. See, you know a corrupting influence. I bet parents recognize some things in your children's lives that are corrupting, and you limit the time that you allow them to be in that environment. None of us vote for people that we believe are corrupt. We elect the best and the brightest among us to go in and serve, and yet we would all acknowledge that politics is corrupting, wouldn't we? So why do we leave those people that we respect and admire in that corrupting environment? They are like addicts drawn to a drug, like a moth drawn to a flame. They can't step back on their own. It is our job. It is our job as citizens to protect those that we put in harm's way. Politics is harm's way.